So we're finally here, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Darkest Hour, the grand finale for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic books. And before we get into the main review, before we get into the recap and the meat and potatoes, I just want to say thank you to everyone for all the support over the past couple of years. When I first started talking about Power Ranger comics on the channel, I was never expecting it to get this big. I was never expecting it to get this much support from everyone, from friends to family to content creators and people in the community I would meet online. Thank you everyone for the support over the past couple of years. It means a lot to me. And with the mainline comics coming to a close, it feels like a chapter in my life is coming to a close as well, because I've been covering these comics for what seems like forever, and for it to come to an end, well, it's kind of hard to swallow in a way. Okay, I think that's enough emotional speeches for now. We'll do more at the end of the video. But let's talk about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Darkest Hour, the final issue, the grand finale in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic book. Let's go. So the issue opens up with what I can believe is what happened when Darkest Hour began, when Zordon's original body, the vessel, is floating through space, and you see what happens moments before Dark Spectre took it over. And Zordon's body has this inner monologue how he's witnessed all this destruction and all he can do is watch it through his own eyes. We then cut to Earth where the battle is still raging on from last issue. Lord Zed is fighting the Vile ship, Chloe is fighting her dad, and the other Ranger teams are fighting Thrall's and Dark Spectre's forces. Now, Chloe's finally able to settle the score with her dad, which is satisfying to see, but there's one thing that doesn't really get resolved in this battle between Chloe and her dad, and that is the fate of her mother. Something we learnt about in the Hyperforce one-shot from last year, that she's actually alive, so I do wonder if we'll ever follow up on that story, or it's going to be one of those threads left dangling. But luckily, they're able to push back Angel and his forces for the time being. I mean, Lord Zed is able to knock the Vile ship out of the sky and it comes crashing down. Bulk is able to get a good punch on one of the Thralls, and even Trini is able to slice one open. So they're able to push back Angel and his forces for now, but this isn't the last they've seen of him, that is for sure. So on the next page, we have Tommy and Kimberly preparing their final goodbyes to each other because they don't know what's going to happen next. These are two soldiers saying goodbye to each other as they're shipped off to war. So the two of them have a tearful goodbye, and while this is going on, you've got Rocky and Adam inside, watching, holding hands. Now these guys are terrified about what they need to do next, and I can understand why. When Darkest Hour began, they were captured, tortured, and corrupted. And that's probably the most scariest thing they've been through within their time as a Ranger. And in issue 121, they were still going through the sort of the recovery and the therapy of what just happened. And now they're jumping right back into the action where it could happen to them again. So I can totally understand why these two bros are holding hands, because this might be their final moments together. Okay, so last week's issue, we had this one scene where Billy had noticed that Grace Sterling actually died in 1969 when he was looking at one of the memorials, and this was one of the effects of Billy splintering off the grid when he broke one of the power regs. Now, I did miss this originally. I missed it, my bad, I didn't catch on to it, but you guys were quick to correct me and tell me exactly what I missed. So props to you guys for helping me put that piece together that I wasn't quite seeing when I originally first read it. Now, because Billy splintered off the grid, it caused Grace to die in 1969, but also it erased the existence of Kia and Coinless Trini. So that explains that mystery. In my previous review, I thought maybe they got arrested, maybe they got put in a jail cell or something like that, because we didn't see any of them in last month's issue, but that wasn't the case. They got erased from existence when the grid splintered off. Maybe they got pushed into another timeline entirely, not sure, but Billy does say that it erased their existence in this timeline. Now, Billy plans on fixing his mistake, and we'll talk about that later, especially at the end of the video when this issue comes to a close, but Zordon tells Billy before they can fix the grid, they need to save it. After that, you then have Taylor and Jason discussing the plan, and you have this moment where Jason is admiring Taylor for being such a great captain and ranger. Taylor says that Jason is a great ranger as well, but Jason says he used to be a great ranger, but maybe someday he'll become a ranger again. But for now, he says that he's just a civilian, taking his last stand to defend the Earth so the Rangers can protect it. And Taylor's response here is really great. She smacks him upside the head and tells him not to treat it like a suicide mission and not to die out there. Now, Taylor and Jason's interactions throughout Darkest Hour have been really great to read. I feel like Melissa's writing for these two characters interacting have been really great. I kind of wish that Taylor got to do a little bit more in Darkest Hour, but with her military background and leading the civilian forces on Earth, it makes sense. But I kind of wish we got to see more of her and Jason interacting, but her giving that pep talk to Jason and smacking him upside the head, tell him to just don't say stupid shit like that, a lot of fun to see. Now, for all those Jason and Trini shippers, the next scene here is pretty freaking wholesome. So, Jason confronts Trini on a relationship with Zach, and it's a mature talk they have. No angst, no drama, no yelling, no shouting. They just talk it out. And Trini just says it just suddenly happened, and she didn't mean for it to hurt Jason. But they soon tell each other with how much they love each other and they hope they both survive. And so it seems like that the two of them still had feelings for each other the whole time. And that feelings, or those feelings they had for one another, they never went away. So what we get here is a nice little moment, and it's great to see that here again, because this is the finale of the Power Ranger comics entirely. So for this plot thread to get wrapped up or resolved, I'm glad that Melissa did it. And thank you, Melissa, for giving me the moment I really, really wanted to see, where Tommy met Tommy. So MMPR Tommy got to meet Dino Thunder Tommy. The interaction I really, really wanted to see if they would actually do it in the comics, and they actually did. And what we get is we have younger Tommy surprised that he becomes a doctor in the future, but older Tommy thought he'd question the haircut. So again, classic Tommy banter, you could say, but I'm really glad we got this moment. I was thinking we'd sort of get them fighting side by side, but because Tommy has kind of given up his powers to share out the white light, we don't really see Tommy morphing in this issue, but it was still cool to finally see them both interact together. That was great to see. I'm glad we got that moment in the finale of the Power Ranger comics. I mean, I would have cried in the corner if I didn't get it. So Ranger Slayer and Solar Ranger are able to get the Void reconnected and get the signal ready for the others to travel through. And I really do like Billy's comment about the Void opening up, where he's like, oh, so that's Ranger Slayer's signal. I thought she'd send a text or something. And then after that, you have this moment between Kendall and the Phantom Ranger. And again, these are two characters that the comic is able to make interact with each other, and they can work with each other. And I feel like, again, Melissa did a fantastic job writing these two characters together and how they played off with each other, with Kendall's smarts and the Phantom Ranger's wisdom that he's had over the past couple of thousand years. But Kendall doesn't want to leave Earth behind again, but the Phantom Ranger tells her that she needs to go. But Kendall wants the Phantom Ranger to come along because, it's the Phantom Ranger. They need him. They need all the help they can get. But the Phantom Ranger says, hey, I can't morph, so I'm not going to be much use for the plan. And the Phantom Ranger also doesn't want to abandon this arch again. So the two have a nice wholesome moment. But the Phantom Ranger tells Kendall by saying that the Earth has more champions than you realize, and we will keep it safe for your return. Kendall thanks the Phantom Ranger, but the Phantom Ranger says there is no need for thanks. In these moments, the only thing that matters is the choices we make. So, in last week's issue where Lord Zed was reaching out for the Zeo Crystal and I was questioning it going, why is he grabbing that? That isn't good. He's going to get burnt to a crisp again. Well, actually, it turns out that the Death Ranger was inside the Zeo Crystal the whole time. How? Why? Well, do you remember in issue 115 when Rita started attacking the Death Ranger for their failures a couple of issues ago? Well, apparently the Death Ranger didn't die. Rita just trapped them in the Zeo Crystal, and they would be released when they needed to be useful. Well, in this situation, they need the Death Ranger to be useful, so the Death Ranger is joining the final battle. But the moment is arriving very soon. The battle is about to begin. Several Rangers run through the portal. Friends and lovers say goodbye to each other, and while this is going on, Billy is having this inner monologue, but it's like he's almost writing in a journal. Something we'll touch upon later on at the end as well. Don't worry, there's a lot of things we've got to talk about at the end of this issue. But it looks like he's writing a letter to Grace, saying that he understands why she started Promethea, as Grace thought that Rangers wouldn't be enough to save the Earth. Maybe humans would be. Billy understands that Grace wants him to follow in her footsteps, but he admits that he's messed up, and promises that he won't let her down again. And it almost looks like that Billy's going to stay behind, but the Phantom Ranger soon hands Billy a new form of Morpher, saying that now is the time for him to prove himself. The battle in the void soon begins as Dark Spectre's force is soon invading, led by Remy and Dane. The Solar Rangers soon morph and summon their Zords, which leads to a big space battle between the different Zords. Now, it's been years since I probably talked about the Solar Ranger Zords, and they're alright. They're different spaceship designs, but they all do have a unique look to them that reflects their Rangers or the original Rangers that piloted them back in the day. And with this giant space battle going on, Ranger Slayer watches from below, but she's soon confronted by Dark Spectre and several other Rangers. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the heroes are still struggling to fight off Angel and his forces, and things aren't looking good for them. I mean, you have Ernie joining the battle as well, which is pretty cool. I will say that he just charges in there. But Skull is confronted by Danny, Wild Force Black, and you have this scene where it almost looks like he's going to bite the dust, but suddenly he's saved by Zalia, aka Candace, his alien girlfriend. The two reunite, which is a really nice moment, I will say that. Like I said earlier, Melissa is like tying everything together from the last 8 years to give it a pretty satisfying ending for these characters. Like, we get all these reunions and characters showing back up. It's pretty nice. But Zalia, or Candace, whatever you want to call her, she brings reinforcements from the planet Eltar as they join the battle as well. Back in the void, things aren't looking good either. The space battle is looking grim, and Ranger Slayer isn't able to hold off Dark Spectre. But help soon arrives, and this is where all-out war for the fate of the Morphin Grid begins. While Billy carries up Zordon to the top so he can set their plan into motion, he begins writing to Coinless Trini, saying that he'll find a way to bring her back. Meanwhile, the battle continues to rage on. You have Rangers fighting Rangers, Serpentera being controlled by Squat, Babu, and Goldar in their Dark Ranger forms, which again, like I've said 50 times in this video, Melissa is pulling out all the stops and all the references with the past 8 years of the comic books. Now, the Hyperforce Megazord is there too, and Lord Zed soon begins fighting Dark Spectre, and he's almost about to get killed, but the Death Ranger soon shows up and pulls a Shang Tsung on freaking Dark Spectre, trying to rip out their soul, but they're easily stopped. Now that he's dealt with everyone, Dark Spectre makes his way to the Rangers, and this is where the do-or-die plan comes into motion. Now, the best way to describe this plan is how they describe it in the comic, and the way Zordon and Kimberly and all that describe it is, it's like sunlight coming through a lens, causing a spark that will start a flame. Zordon is the lens, and the grid energy is the light. The remaining Rangers stand in front of Zordon's portable tube, and soon morph. A golden light of morphin energy emits out, and Dark Spectre soon catches on fire. He tries to get back up again, but Zordon's body soon intervenes as it takes control, deciding that the both of them will be purged. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers do their last morph, and Dark Spectre is burnt to nothing, finally defeating him. Dark Spectre is now defeated. The corruption is gone, but the grid is still shattered, splintered off, but Billy says that he can heal it. It just takes time. And I really do like that moment where Kimberly says, "Are you sure that you can heal the cracks?" And Billy says, "Do you trust me?" And Kimberly gives him a kiss on the cheek and says, "I never stopped believing in you." And it's a really nice moment between the two of them. So Billy walks through the aftermath of the battle, and we have some reunions between everyone after this giant battle. Some tearful reunions, some sad reunions, some people having no reunions at all. But Billy watches everything and falls to his knees as he sees the aftermath. And he says this as he's writing a letter to Zordon by saying, "You once told me that there is a delicate balance between good and evil, and when that balance is unpended, there will always be consequences." Flash forward several years later, and we see a much older Billy. He's still in his ranger suit, but he's wearing normal clothes over it. He's wearing what seems to be like a biker getup almost. He's got the tall boots, the fingerless gloves, a jacket. He's grown a beard. His hair is a lot more messier now, and he has a scar across his face. Billy then starts writing this down in his journal. "It may take my whole life, but I'll never stop working to repair the grid. I made mistakes, but you forgave me for them. But in the end, we saved the world, defeated Dark Spectre. I know you were proud. And although some things changed, others didn't. No matter how uncertain our future is, or what evil may be coming for us, there will always be Power Rangers, and they will never stop fighting." Billy places his journal down, and he looks at his hand. In it looks to be a brand new morpher, with the Triceratops coin in it. Billy clenches his fist tightly and says, "It's morphin' time." And after 8 long years, the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger comic books have come to a close. So yeah, that was the Darkest Hour finale. After 12 long months, this story arc has come to a close. One of the longest story arcs we've had within the Power Ranger comics. And with the Darkest Hour finale, I'm walking away with mixed feelings. I didn't downright hate it. I enjoyed it. You can probably tell that from the review. There's some parts that I did enjoy. There's some parts I have mixed feelings on. And I feel like the part that I have probably the mixed feelings on the most is the final battle. Although the final battle was drawn really well, some really great artwork, it kind of felt rushed. And I'm not hanging shit on Melissa. I think she's a very talented writer. She's good at what she does. But I feel like that maybe that the final battle was kind of anticlimactic with how they defeated Dark Spectre. Yeah, it was a giant Z-Wave and that scene was pretty cool, but the final battle felt a little bit rushed. And I am wondering, maybe Dark Spectre had gotten too powerful that maybe Melissa might have ridden herself into a corner with how they were going to deal with Dark Spectre. Maybe if she got given a couple more issues and maybe the finale would have played out a little bit differently. I'm not entirely sure. But the whole final battle felt very rushed. And maybe we could have gotten some more fight scenes between all the different Ranger teams with everything going on, sort of having that all is lost moment where it looks like the bad guys were going to win and the good guys were going to lose with everything going on. But characters like the Death Ranger showing up is kind of questionable within itself. I get that they were trapped within the Zeo Crystal. Rita did that to them. But the Death Ranger was brought back just to have a couple of scenes, and they got freaking laid out pretty quickly by Dark Spectre. And they were down within like 2 panels, and Dark Spectre wasn't even trying. I get having the scene there, trying to rip out the soul of Dark Spectre from the vessel, noticing that scene, but they got dealt with fairly quickly. And what was the point of the Death Ranger being there if they were just going to be fodder in the end? So it does make me wonder if there was more issues planned for this story arc, or was there some last minute changes that had to be done to make sure this wrapped up in 122 and the Darkest Hour one-shot finale. So I do wonder if there was an extended ending planned for this story arc, but things got shifted behind the scenes. But if there's a couple of changes I would have made with this story arc, it would have been 120, the Solar Ranger focused issue, be an unlimited book, so that way you'd get more pages focusing on the Solar Rangers, and we could expand on them a little bit more. But also, maybe that epilogue we get at the end could have been the actual finale. Like, there could have been something leading into this epilogue by showing, hey, this is not only what happened to Billy several years into the future, but this is what happened to everyone else several years into the future, and this is what the Boom timeline now looks like. I do understand leaving it ambiguous and up to your own imagination with what happened in the Boom timeline with how Billy's narrating everything, and I freaking love Billy's older design with the beard and the messy hair and the leather jacket, like the biker getup. I think that looks really cool. But I feel like that epilogue probably could have been its own issue within itself, and it's sort of like what happened to these characters after the battle against Dark Spectre, and where are they now? Like, what happened to a bunch of these characters after the battle? Like, what happened to Tommy? What happened to Jason? What happened to Matt? How are they rebuilding after this? How is the timeline slowly getting fixed with the grid slowly repairing itself? I'm not entirely sure. We do have this Power Rangers Prime coming out in November, and I'm not sure if that's going to be a sort of like relaunch or a sequel relaunch to MMPR. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll have to wait and see. But like I said, I didn't overall hate the finale for Darkest Hour. I'm just walking away feeling very mixed about it. And who knows, maybe my opinion will change over time. But what do you guys think of the Darkest Hour finale? Tell me in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. And with that said, I'm going to be bringing this video to a close. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed to the channel, who's watched my videos, liked them, and left a comment down below. Your support is greatly appreciated. For everyone who's been following these comic reviews for the past several years, thank you so much as well. I didn't think I'd make it this far in covering the Power Ranger comics and actually talking about the big grand finale for this comic book series. I mean, I started talking about Shattered Grid all those years ago, and I didn't think I'd keep talking about the comics after so many years. But thank you to everyone for all the support. Big special thanks to everyone who's worked on the comics for the past couple of years. You guys are some very, very talented people. And for people who's worked on the comics and reached out and supported the channel, thank you so much as well. That is greatly appreciated as well. But with that said, I think I'm going to bring this video to a close. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out. Take care. Bye.